Warning, this video contains AI-generated content. Viewer discretion is advised. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you may have noticed there's been some drama in the RPG Maker community recently. And at first glance, it looks like it's about AI. A developer named Sang Hendrix, known for some very high-quality plugins, has been accused by parts of the community of using AI without disclosing it. There are screenshots, forum posts, even code being passed around as evidence. But honestly, that's not the part that I find most interesting. What caught my attention is what happened after those accusations started spreading. Things began to escalate until eventually, a few people began recreating some of his plugins and releasing them for free. And alongside that, a very specific claim was made. Today, we're going to take a look at one of those plugins and test the claim directly. So let's jump right into this Reddit post. It starts off saying, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, as they say. And so here, I vibe-coded my idol Sang Hendrix's vibe-coded plugin to disprove the naysayers who refuse to believe that his plugins were not vibe-coded, due to his plugins being too comprehensive. It goes on to say, well, newsflash, it only took me 4 prompts and 30 minutes of waiting time. You can download the plugin here. I will attach the prompts I used in the comments below, so you too can milk the RPG Maker community and make $150,000 from your plugins. Imagine being able to make the yearly salary of a senior software engineer despite not being a real software engineer. You just need to be able to market your plugins well by slapping some fancy trailers. All hail Sang Hendrix, the vibe-coding milk lord of the RPG Maker community. So our goal here is to become a milk lord and make $150,000. And all that requires is 4 prompts and milking the community. We've got prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3, and prompt 4. So I created a fresh RPG Maker project and opened up Codex. So now I've got the first prompt entered into Codex, and I'll send it. Now if you watch in the bottom left corner, you can see Codex's thought process as it works. So it starts by mapping how this would even fit an RPG Maker. Next it discovers that there's no Git repo, and then it starts gathering more context from the project. Now it's found that there's no existing particles plugin in the project, so it begins to gather even more context. Now it's found the core attach points and it's mapping out persistence and editor paths. Now it's found an implementation plan and it's going to start writing some code. Now it decides that it's going to keep everything inside of one plugin file. Now it's doubling down on creating a single plugin file. And now we've got our first output. Now it's completed its first pass and it's checking for any errors. And it found some minor issues. Now it's got the features in place and it's making some small finishing touches. And now it's making one final fix before it finishes. Alright, and now it's finished with prompt number 1, and we're that much closer to our goal of $150,000 and milking the community. And now you can see that we hit the same exact problem that the original recreation hit, where It opens in a menu in-game instead of in a new editor window, so we'll have to use prompt number 2. It understands its task and it's starting to switch over to an external window. And now it's got the conversion in and it's doing a little bit of cleanup. And now it's got the new editor window path in place and it's checking for any leftover references to the old window. And now it's done with prompt number 2. It's got the editor window in place, and it'll be time for us to give this one a test and see how it works. And at a glance, seems pretty promising. We'll have to follow up with prompt number 3 and 4. Now we're just going to speed through prompt number 3 since it's just some minor changes. And now it's finished with prompt number 3, and we're going to go ahead and skip right to prompt number 4. I did do a test and it was successful, so we'll just skip that because we'll get right to prompt number 4 and then see the final result. Alright, and now we're done with all 4 prompts, so we get to go see exactly what it is that Codex made for us. So you can see that we have our particles showing in game, and we've got our editor window already opened. You can see that we have a bunch of sliders, a bunch of different properties. One thing that I did notice though is that if I change any of these, it resets my position all the way up to the top again. So that's not the best user experience. Like if I were to just click this, it pops back up again. If I go down anywhere and I just click something, it pops back up. And that's a minor bug that could be fixed in one prompt probably. And another thing that I noticed as well in a quick test before recording this is all of these buttons do not work. They don't seem to do anything. Layers panel, properties panel. Our images for the textures, they are selected from this drop down, or you could click use image and then it'll open up a file explorer. And that's pretty much what we've got here. It's a pretty promising prototype, but not quite ready for release. Probably would take a decent amount of work in order to be able to get it going. I don't know if it would just be a few more prompts, because there are some deeper problems that we'll get into in a little bit, but it is a promising start. I will say that, after those 4 vague prompts, it looks like, you could dedicate a considerable amount of time into fine-tuning this, and it might be something workable. So now that we see how this plugin works, we can get into a comparison of the 2 plugins to see what's different. So I downloaded the other plugin and threw it into the project with _original attached to the end of it, and had Codex run a comparison. So I'm not going to go through every detail here. It's a full deep comparison. If you want, you can pause and read as it scrolls. But what it says at a high level is that these are not small differences between these 2 plugins. They're 2 completely different implementations of the same prompts. My version is more of like a self-contained local storage, simple runtime pop-up editor, and the other version is built more like a full plugin with a project file persistence where it writes to a file in the data folder, and then it has deeper systems and more structure to everything inside of it. There's also major differences in how they handle runtime. Mine rebuilds everything based on what's currently active in the scene, where the other one has a more explicit runtime manager system that controls everything. The editor is also another big gap. Mine is more functional and straightforward and minimal, where the other one is much more like a full tool with more UI, more workflow, more built-in systems. But feature-wise, they both actually do go beyond the full prompt, but in different ways. Mine leans more into motion and physics style controls. The other leans into tooling, animation systems, and production features. which are all intentional design decisions that were not specified in any of the prompts. So one would think that if you were going to send these 4 exact prompts, you would get something very similar to what I got. And those other results are something that the only explanation that I see for it is missing context. My agent didn't have some context that the other agent had. I don't know what the context was that the other agent had access to. It could be screenshots, it could be documentation, it could be a long conversation about the features that happened before the 4 prompts, but that kind of kills the 4 prompts 30 minutes if you had to spend a long time planning the system before you send these 4 prompts. So there's not much that I could say definitively. But what I can say for certain is that the 4 prompts, 30 minutes did not work in my experience. I got something that would require a considerable amount of work to get it to something that's actually production ready. Whereas they seem to have gotten something very quick, which doesn't really line up with my expectations from what I saw in the prompts. And what I ended up getting lined up much more with what I expected to get. But we're not going to give up on our dream, so we're going to go ahead and call this plugin the Ritter Ultra Particle Builder System Lite trademark. Get it now on itch.io.